Mr. John W. Stubbs of Route 2 Brown Summit, small farmer and candidate of the Progressive Party for Commissioner of Agriculture, will introduce Mr. M.H. Mike Ross of Greensboro, candidate for Congress on the Progressive Party ticket. Right now, here is Mr. Stubbs.
Tonight you will hear from a young man, a veteran of combat service in the last war. Like millions of other veterans, he is alarmed at the present danger of a new and terrible world war. I know as a Guilford County farmer and as one active in church work, the fear that overshadows millions of farm families and deeply religious people when they see how really close to the brink of war we are. One reason I am working for the election of Mr. Henry Wallace this year is because of the present criminal bipartisan drive towards war. It is indeed an honor to me to present to you now Mr. M.H. Mike Ross of Greensboro, Progressive Party candidate for Congress in the 6th District. Mr. Ross.
The country today is filled with big politicians who cry peace, peace, while they drive the nation into war. Little people like you and I are not being consulted, but we must do the fighting, the suffering, and the dying. Munitions corporations, Wall Street banks, and big oil companies made huge profits on the last war, while PFCs like myself slugged it out in the infantry for $50 a month. These rich trusts are anxious to cash in on more of the blood money of war profits. Do the gentlemen in high places who talk so glibly of another war realize what atomic warfare with bacteriological weapons would mean to the American people? Are the bankers up in Wall Street who plan this new world war considering the jet rockets, radioactive clouds, and other horrifying weapons that would bring death and destruction to the common people? When the military jingoes try to hoodwink us into thinking that a few atom bombs dropped on Russia would be all there was to it, do they think we have forgotten that Hitler, too, promised the German people a quick blitzkrieg war? They lie to us. Don't take my word for it. Hear for yourself what General H. Arnold wrote. Quote, "We won the last war, and it is the last war we'll ever win. If we have another war, this nation will lose. If we fought Russia, the best we could hope to achieve is a moral victory, and that would be small comfort to the remnants of our people crawling amid the burnt-out foundations and charred chimneys of a ruined nation." End quote. Nice to think about, isn't it? We don't want such a war. My friends, it is not too late. We little folks, housewives, workers, farmers, veterans, church people, can still stop these money-mad warmongers. But we cannot prevent war so long as we support the DTs, the Dewey Trumans, for it is precisely their bipartisan foreign policy that has led to the brink of war. Only Henry Wallace, the co-worker and friend of Franklin Roosevelt and former Vice President of the United States, is calling for a peace program and not war. Why is it that Franklin Roosevelt could meet with the Russian leaders and secure cooperation, joint work, and a peaceful future? Why is it that ever since FDR died, old party leaders have allowed Wall Street banks and Churchill to set American policy? The American people want nothing of foreign wars of conquest. When you vote Wallace for president and Ross for Congress, you are voting for peace and security in place of war and depression. The 1948 elections will go down in history. In North Carolina, we will have 4 parties on the presidential ballot. 3 of them, Democrats, Republicans, and Dixiecrats, are united on one thing. They love big business, and they want war as fast as they can get it. They don't care about wages, high prices, small business, farmers, or peace. But they love to help line the pockets of the Wall Street interests they serve. There is supposed to be peace, yet the papers are filled with war talk. There are battlefronts tonight in Greece, Palestine, and China. In Greece and China, hungry kids hold out their hands for bread. Our Congress hands them machine guns. The oil trust, which is raising prices of gas and kerosene at home, causes war between Jews and Arabs in Palestine to protect its oil profits. Oil monopolies have persuaded Truman to betray the Jewish people in place of supporting the UN decision for the State of Israel. I say the embargo must be lifted and aid given the new state immediately unless we admit that oil money dominates our foreign policy. What we need is a return to Roosevelt-Wallace good neighbor policies, not a bipartisan drive for war against half the world. You know, there's a real connection between foreign policy and domestic welfare. The war drive helps tear down our living standards at home. Sky-high prices, veterans without homes, layoffs and impending wage cuts in the mills. There's your bipartisan war drive. Lots of money for Berlin and Bazonia, but no money for low-cost housing for our own veterans. The same crowd that screamed for free elections in Bulgaria won't allow free elections in Mississippi or South Carolina. In this 6th district, we have a congressman who is a political accident. He was never picked by the voters. Back in 1938, Judge Teague died after winning the Democratic primary. The party bigwigs met to select another name to put on the ballot. The courthouse bosses secretly hunted up and down the district, trying to find an unknown party wheelhorse, a good, loyal machine man, one who knew how to take orders. At last someone thought of that druggist down at Chapel Hill, Carl Durham, and that was how he landed in Congress. It is also why thousands of Democrats vote against Carl Durham every chance they get. And when enough people learn Carl Durham's voting record, we will lick him. He sticks with the big man and votes against workers, against farmers and small business and veterans. He voted against most of Roosevelt's programs. He even voted against farm aid. Roosevelt and Wallace may have brought us out of depression, but Carl Durham was there with a big no vote. He helped kill price and rent controls. You housewives who have high rents but have forgotten what red meat looks like, scratch Carl Durham's name for Congress. He helped kill veterans' housing bills. You veterans living doubled up with your in-laws, remember that on Election Day. I don't want anyone to think my Republican opponent, Ralph Smith, is any better. He's running on the same old Hoover Dewey platform to take us back to breadlines and depression. There's no use putting in the elephant for the donkey we have. Not when you have a third choice for the people. I am running on a Roosevelt program. I stand for peace, security, freedom, and abundance. As a war veteran, I aim to fight in Congress for a vast housing program to provide low-cost homes for rent and for sale to ex-GIs and working people. I favor a veterans bonus in place of billions for war to Greece and Turkey. I favor the Wallace Plan to aid Southern small farmers and small business with federal financing and aid. I know that so long as a Negro is held down in the ditch, we whites must stay down there with him. So long as a colored worker is paid 50 cents an hour, no white worker's dollar wage is safe. We must work together to increase the income of all the people for their mutual prosperity. I am against lynchings, poll taxes for voting, and discrimination in fair employment. These were the things Franklin Roosevelt fought for. This is the way I shall fight when I get to Washington, for the workers, farmers, and common people. Vote M.H. Ross for Congress if you want more housing, higher wages, better business right here. I don't want the votes of Wall Street stooges. I don't want the votes of those planning a new world war to bring death to the people. I don't want the votes of big manufacturers who underpay their workers while they smash labor unions. I don't want a single Dixiecrat vote, that little handful of Southern rich men who hated Roosevelt. The rotten, bigoted policy of the Dixie-rats, with no program except race hatred, is taking lock, stock, and barrel from Hitler's Mein Kampf. They are a fascist-minded party dominated by northern bankers who want to keep the people of the South divided. I do want the votes of those who want peace and prosperity. I do want the votes of those who loved Roosevelt and the New Deal program. Workers, farmers, and small business people who vote Ross for Congress will get a man who will represent the common folks, not the upper crust. When you veterans vote Ross for Congress, you are voting for a bonus, low-cost housing, and a peaceful world. This district has been misrepresented long enough. It's time for little folks to have some say up in Washington. I don't care how long Democratic and Republican politicians like Carl Durham will stand for veterans not having houses, for workers being speeded up and underpaid, for farmers feeding the whole world while the bankers feed on them. I say it's high time to do something about it. When you vote Ross for Congress, you're voting for one guy who is going up to Washington to fight for low-cost housing, higher wages, $100 per month old-age pensions, draft repeal, and a peace program. I don't intend to take 1 minute's dictation from the tobacco trust or the big mill owners. I am for the common people, and I don't take orders from big money. On November 2nd, the Progressive Party will be the third column on the ballot. Put your X there and know you are voting for yourself, not the big man. No matter how you are registered, you can vote Progressive. The rich men called Roosevelt a red because he helped the people. They can call me a communist, red, black, or blue, but I'm going to fight in Congress for the little man, and they'll never call me yellow. It's time for a change. Forget old party labels and vote for what helps you. Vote Progressive, the third column on the ballot for peace and prosperity. If you want more housing, higher wages, better business, peace and freedom, vote M.H. Mike Ross for Congress.